Is Biden finally going to shut down the border? We're going to talk about that today and more on Speechless. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Speechless. I'm your host, Kev Phares, 23-year-old conservative college graduate now and host of Speechless, not only on Cities 92.9 and other radio stations, but also right here on YouTube. And to make sure you don't miss a minute of it, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment what you think, share it with your friends, all that fun stuff. Don't forget to do that because you don't want to miss a minute of anything we talk about, and you definitely don't want to miss a minute of today's show with my good friend, it's been a while, formerly talented, Josh. How's it going?
I'm good, buddy. How are you?
Oh, I am doing my absolute best and so happy to be talking with you here today all the way from Illinois. I know you're still in Nevada, right?
Yes, still am, and, still working and everything.
Yep. History teacher Josh Bender is joining me today. Been my best friend since college. We're not at all going to talk about DeSantis not winning in the primary, but you can say you're wrong real quick if you want to.
No, I'm not. I've said my piece.
Okay, well, you are wrong. But getting into this story, so this is out of NBC News. I need to show everybody that, yes, I do, in fact, read what the lefties put out. But out of MSNBC, MSDNC, Biden promises to shut down the border if given the authority in a bipartisan bill. According to this article, President Joe Biden last Friday vowed to halt crossings at the border when it's, quote, overwhelmed, as if it's not already overwhelmed. If Congress passes bipartisan immigration legislation giving him that authority. In a strongly worded statement, Biden threw his support behind an emerging immigration deal in the Senate, one that former President Donald Trump is seeking to torpedo, since it could hand a legislative victory to his likely opponent in November. Now, they don't provide any evidence that Trump is trying to torpedo that legislation, but they still say he's trying to do that. What's been negotiated would, if passed into law, be the toughest and fairest set of reforms to secure the border we've ever had in our country, according to Biden. I didn't know he was able to speak full sentences, but apparently they got him to for this article. It would give me, as president, a new emergency authority to shut down the border when it becomes overwhelmed. Now, that's how he starts that part of it. It would give me, as president, a new emergency authority to shut down the border when it becomes overwhelmed. And if given that authority, I would use it the day I sign the bill into law. Essentially saying himself that the border has already become overwhelmed. Now,
right.
There's more to this article, but Josh, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I saw this article earlier. I finished teaching and I had a couple minutes and I was just scrolling through. I actually use NBC for the Decision 24, and it popped up and I was reading it and I was like, wow, this is interesting. And it started with me reading about how the House is currently they're having hearings to impeach Secretary Mayorkas for not doing his job. And then it led to this. And yeah, my immediate thought was, wait, Biden just admitted softly, without actually saying it, but he admitted that the border is overwhelmed. Because if he says, this gives me the authority to shut down the border if it's overwhelmed, and the day I sign it, I'll shut down the border, he's admitting it's overwhelmed. Which is good. I mean, and if he's truly admitting that, if he truly comes out and says it, I will give him credit where credit is due for admitting it. I mean, I'd like him to admit it was his fault. But
see, yeah. I get what you're saying, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
you're good.
The way that I see it is the giving him credit for admitting it is like giving a 40-year-old or 50-year-old who has literally not been sober since they were 21 credit for having a bottle of Jack in one hand and saying, well, I'm an alcoholic.
I mean,
it's like literally them like downing it and in between sips going like them being like, well, I know I'm addicted. And the reason why I say that is because, okay, great. He's mentally coherent enough to be able to admit that the border is currently overwhelmed, but he's been president for 3.5 years, almost 3.5 years, almost between 3 and 4 years. He's been president for that long. And to just now, and it's been overwhelmed for over a year.
Right.
And he's just now, the thing is the credit that you claim is due is so minuscule that I'm not even going to get it. give it to him because the only reason we are in this place, I mean, there was even instances, according to this own article, he is just now admitting that it's overwhelmed. So let's assume that the border actually just now, because Biden noticed it, became overwhelmed, which it hasn't, but let's assume that that's the way it is. Later on in this article, it talks about how there was at one point last year, an instance in which he was trying to negotiate. The Biden administration made a supplemental request last year tying border funding to aid for Ukraine and Israel. Senate negotiators have recently ramped up talks to strike a deal on those issues. So the thing is all of this, even if he claims it's overwhelmed, he's still trying and has in the past tried to do quid pro quos for Ukraine as well. He doesn't actually even, it's the border being overwhelmed. What is happening domestically doesn't even matter that much to him.
Yeah. Well, and
he ultimately wants to send more money to a war that we should not be directly involved in.
And I do find it interesting that, they're talking about quid pro quo with Ukraine. Isn't that what they impeached Donald Trump over? Was a quid pro quo with Ukraine? Different circumstances, but had to do with funding and had to do with the idea of I will give you funding, but you have to tell me if you have any dirt on Joe Biden.
Well, yes,
different, but still to the same extent. I will make sure if there is funding tied to it, I will give you funding here. It's still a quid pro quo.
You're right, but quid pro quo is not universally impeachable offense.
What
Biden is trying to do here is a common political tactic in Congress and in legislation.
I agree. My whole point is to
give me this and take it. I understand what you're saying.
And pulling out the hypocrisy of it, yes, because quid pro quo is incredible. I mean, hell, the country was founded on quid pro quos at the time. I mean, like, genuinely.
Yeah, the difference is that the when the tit for tat that's being asked is from the president, and he is begrudging about the thing that will protect us domestically, but is asking for that of which that will protect those overseas.
Yeah,
and that's where the problem is. And so you'll have people that'll be on the left that'll come out and they'll say things like, "Well, America first is a racist agenda." Well, not really, when America first is basically just saying, hey, why don't we just focus on our southern border and what's going on here before we try to, I don't know, push billions of dollars to a war overseas that we have no direct interest in. Maybe
that's interesting too, because I'm teaching World War I in my world history class, and I just taught about the main causes, and one of the causes of World War I was nationalism. And one thing I said, I go, nationalism is inherently not bad. It's how you use it. The way that these European countries used it at this time, it was used to a poor way because it was tied to militarism, it was tied to imperialism, it was tied to all these other things. But being nationalistic, saying, hey, we should focus on our country first before others, is not inherently a bad thing. And we're even seeing Democrats like Fetterman, who, by the way, apparently he got better from his stroke and became more conservative. I don't know what happened with him. I mean, genuinely, it's nuts. He healed from his stroke and suddenly he's conservative because he's not. I mean, it happened. I don't know what happened because all of a sudden he's saying, "Hey, it's not bigoted to talk about the border. We should be talking about the border." Hey,
the cure for liberalism. Wait, Josh. The cure for liberalism is having a stroke.
No, I'm saying he healed from his stroke and suddenly got conservative. I don't know what happened. I mean, good for him, I guess. But when he's like, hey, talking about the border and border security isn't bigoted. We should be doing that. Hey, Israel's an ally we should be looking out for. We should be denouncing Hamas. Like all of a sudden he's talking about all these common sense things and people are lambasting him. Where I'm like, no, he's got a good point. Yes, the border it's not bigoted to say we need secure borders, we need strong borders. I see students, who are Hispanic, who have talked to me about their family, who say, "No, we need a strong border because they understand what could be on the other side."
Well, there's that, and even building off of that, I mean, there's been a significant number of border crossings that in recent months that are not of people of Hispanic descent, and that's where I think real concern comes.
I mean, and we're getting tons of military-age males. I mean, traditionally asylum is families, where yes, your family is in danger. You come here, and I'm happy to take care of the families. I mean, I'm not saying we need to let all of them in, but if there is genuinely a solution or a problem, and you need a little bit of help, I'm happy to take you in for temporary asylum when we figure it out. I get that. But it's when you're getting single military age males from Iran, Afghanistan, China, that's dangerous. We know that's dangerous. I mean, even after Hamas attacked Israel, the FBI was saying, yeah, there's probably Hamas rings or terror rings in the United States. Be careful. I mean, they were putting out warnings saying that. So it doesn't make sense, or that, when people are like, it's bigoted, it's just that. No, every country needs strong borders. I mean, one thing that leads to the fall of these nations, like Rome, was they opened their borders too much and they let everyone in. That's an issue. We need to have a secure border, and it's not bigoted to say it. And I think even tying to talk about impeaching Mayorkas, where they're like, oh, it's political theater, this and that. If the president of the United States is admitting that the border is in disarray, there is a border crisis, his secretary of Homeland Security, whatever it is, if he's not doing what he needs to do, he needs to be impeached. It's that simple. And I don't get the problem with that. I mean, I think impeaching Mayorkas might be a good idea. I don't really know the full details of it, but I think it should have to be encouraged and looked into. It's a little late at this point. They should have done this a year ago. I mean, it said they've been looking for a year. How long does it take to figure out that this guy's incompetent? We know he's incompetent. He's been incompetent since day one, ever since he opened up these borders. It's not a big deal. It's not a problem. I just don't understand what the big deal is. And so I don't know. I think it's interesting overall to look at this. I think the border is it's a thing that everyone looks at. I mean, Democrat, Republican, they're all looking at and saying, this is unfair. And I think even if they want to talk about, why the border needs to be secure, it's to make sure that the asylum system isn't being abused by people who shouldn't be abusing it. It's to make sure that we can take care of these families. It's to make sure that we can take care of the people who genuinely need to have asylum.
Look, here's the thing, is we've known that there's been a crisis at the border for a lot longer than Joe Biden obviously did. And we've also known that there's been many people within Joe Biden's within Joe Biden's executive offices, including he himself, that have been subjected to some level of investigation, maybe impeachment, anything for a long time, and House Republicans have consistently failed. And I don't want to make this about the establishment or even the conservatives or the Freedom Caucus or anything. When they have consistently shown that it's about some level of petty infighting and being mad at each other on both sides of it, both sides of the Republican Party, instead of actually getting to the heart of, hey, there's viable reason to impeach Joe Biden. There's viable reason. We are just now over 3 years, in some years into Joe Biden's presidency. We're just now getting to a lot of these things. This is insanely stupid. It's as bad, not as bad. It's pretty close to being as bad as Joe Biden just now realizing that there's a crisis at the border.
Yeah. I mean, and I think even, and then part of that article too was saying like, oh, Republicans are focusing on the impeachment of Mayorkas and, they're trying to tank this bipartisan legislation. First of all, I've seen none of that. If that is would it shock me if they were trying to tank it, at least delay it for a little bit so that they can get a win? No, because they've been sounding the alarm since the beginning of the year that they have nothing to run on, that they've had no verifiable good achievements to run on. And that's fair. But I think this could be touted as a win for them for putting enough pressure on Biden and the Democrats. It's about marketing. If they can market it the right way, they can do it. They won't, because they're going to drop the ball like always, but they could. Republicans
have a fascinating way of snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. And when it comes to spinning the narrative, they have never been good at that. But everybody, what do you guys think? Is it good that Joe Biden might actually finally almost maybe do something about the border crisis that apparently just started, according to him? I don't know, but let me know in the comments. Don't forget to share this video with your friends. Let them know that Biden actually might be doing something about the border. Comment what you think. Subscribe to the channel. Like this video. I'd really appreciate it. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. Until next time, you've been watching Speechless.